Hello, so thank you very much for watching, and thank you for all the likes and subscribes and the lovely comments that I've had on previous videos. If you're not already subscribed and you have notifications on, if you subscribe, that means that you won't miss a video when I release them. So what I'm going to do today, as you can see, I'm back in the studio having had a really nice time out on the moors the other day. So this week I'm wanting to really focus on starting to get down to business, so to speak, with my what I'm calling summer moors or heather moors pieces of work paintings. And I made a start on these paintings and then I left them whilst I developed other work. And so unusually I'm actually going back to paintings now. And so what I have been doing is setting up the studio ready to immerse myself in the heather moors as opposed to spring woodland. And so this is an ongoing sort of change of set for me, really, throughout this year. So I will turn the camera around in a minute and share with you properly, but behind me you can see some of my studies, not the ones that you saw me doing last week, but some previous studies. So I've put those on the wall, and I've literally been setting up the space and looking at colour palette and looking at words that reflect my inspirations and interest in the heather and so on, and getting my kind of started panels on the wall and thinking about how I'm going to get going. So today what I'm going to do is with you is I'm going to share that sort of setup in the studio. I'm going to share some of my initial sketchbook work and show you what is going on and how I'm thinking of getting going with the paintings again. But I'm also going to just share briefly, if I have time, some reconfiguring studies. So I've got some additional studies to the ones you see behind me, and I'm going to do some reconfiguring as a way of starting to think about and abstract what it is that I'm interested in within the heather moors. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera around and get going. And hilariously, although I hadn't noticed, on some snip videos I've been doing on some of my social media, people have been mentioning about the fact that my top goes with the heather, but I never even thought of that. As you know, if you've seen me on here for a while, this is kind of one of my painting tops that I very regularly wear, so I hadn't really thought about its connection with the heather, but there we are. So I'm very tailored for the occasion. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around and get going. Okay, so I'm going to just give you a quick whiz around my setup workspace. So I may as well start here because my lens is directed that way. So this is I have sketchbooks for different subject matter. So this is my moors sketchbook. And I have got all of the winter moors work in here and the originally started summer moors. And now I've gone back to it, I've started to re-look at the colour palette, because although I had a colour palette before, I've actually tweaked it somewhat. And so I have changed my blue, which is now a phthalo blue that I use together with alizarin crimson. And I've changed my yellows to a warmer yellows. One of them is Indian yellow, that's that one with white, and this one is nickel azo yellow, which is both of these are a lot warmer. And this one, the nickel azo yellow, is almost like a transparent form of yellow ochre. And the Indian yellow is a very warm yellow as well. So that's the kind of colour palette, and I started this in a usual way for me, which is to describe some of the colours I was seeing on the moors, and then to reflect that in this initial palette. And I've not kind of covered every colour, so there will be some additional colours probably, but this is my sort of base colours. And I've started to think about words that describe the summer moors, and so that started over there. And over here, I've just got a load of studies on A3 that I've done previously that I'm probably going to start reconfiguring. So that's that. And then if I go up to the wall, these were studies that I started previously when the moors were flowering. Sorry, not the top ones. The top two were done very recently with and have been reconfigured. So they're reconfigured collages based on some views of the heather moors from a distance. And then these 4 are not reconfigured, they were just done with mixed media, including acrylics, out on location when the heather was in full flower, and that was towards the end of last year I did those. And then you'll be familiar with these if you've seen my video from last week, which is the thumbnail studies I did out on location, and then a started concertina sketchbook, which I will continue with in the coming days and weeks. So that's the setup there, and then that's a previous study from last year. So you can see how I'm kind of working here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across to show you the started paintings and what I might be continuing with. Okay, so here are the started paintings, and I've actually got 3 of those larger 50 centimetre square ones. So the third one is down on the floor here, and then I've got 3 of those smaller 30 centimetre ones. And these have had some layers of paint and some collage, so if I go closer you'll be able to see that. They're still very raw, you can see pencil marks and so on, and to an extent I want to retain some of that rawness, but obviously there's lots of work to do with respect to layering up and creating depth in terms of getting the compositions to work, and also using the learnings I've had from the other experiences of the other groups of paintings I've been working on. And that has come from doing all of the studies and the writing. And what I've come to realise is that it really works best for me if I can identify what it is I'm wanting each painting to say, because there's no point having each painting saying everything you want to say about excuse me, the heather moors. So I'm going to be working on identifying what each of those needs to say for me, and as a way of tapping into how to develop these paintings. But also what I'm also going to do is I'm going to start 1 or more panels, the larger size, as a way of keeping it loose, of not going into these and feeling very tight, but just starting with play and exploration, and just keeping it free. And that's the sort of the plan really. And what I should say is that for each of these, there are things that I do like. If I'm going in, you can just see a little bit. But as you can see, well, you might not be able to see actually, but I mentioned about changing the colour palette, and I'm not entirely happy with the rather dull effect of the desaturated colour. And although I like the contrast between saturated and desaturated, I think these need to be a little bit brighter. It is still summer after all, so I will be working on that and moving these on by going back and forth between studies and the paintings themselves. Now what I want to do is to talk to you about how one of the ways in which I start interrogating my interests, and that is to reformat some of the studies. Now I'm going to just pass over here to the original wall where I have some of the studies set up, and those top 2 are collages, but they're done in a slightly different way to what I'm going to show you in a minute. And what these 2 are is where I have done an A3 study, a mixed media study outside on location. I've then torn it up and I've used a couple of the pieces, and you can probably see that if I hold in, and I've stuck the 2 pieces down, and then I've extended and developed the study from there. And I really quite enjoy doing that, and I do that quite often. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of reconfigure a couple of studies or one study in a slightly different way. So I'm going to turn the camera around and share that with you now. Okay, so here is one in a sketchbook that I've reconfigured, and literally I've just chopped and positioned and placed elements together. I've not added lots more drawing like I showed you on the other one on the wall. So that's what I call a reconfigured study. And what I have done is I've added some colours over the marks over it. So that's the sorts of approach I'm going to take. And I'll put that to one side for now because I'll need it to put the one that I'm going to do into. I use this sort of sketchbook, ring bind sketchbook, to keep them flat and to keep them clean and together, so that kind of works. So I've got 4 pieces that I've done out on the moors, and these were done on Marsden Moor And the lines in orange represent the fact that I was looking through some wire and netting to the heather, and that's often the case. You see the stone wall and you see the wires and the posts almost like the edgelands within the heather, so that's quite interesting. So anyway, so that's the first one, and I'll just show you 4 that I've done, then I'll choose one and get going. So that's the first one. They're all done in the same sort of location, really. That's the second one. Some interesting, I mean, this yellow, I'm thinking that I actually didn't have the exact right colours, because that yellow is a bit too acidy for my liking, but there we go. I don't have to reflect that on my actual paintings. There's another one where you clearly see the wires and the rustiness and the red. I actually quite like that rusty red. And that might well go into my paintings, and I do like it against the purple, not sure why. And this one has got a little bit more breathing space. Quite like the idea of having just the drift through and then more of the lighter colours, because a lot of them are quite heavy, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to reconfigure. And then that's back to this one here. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one and get going, and I think the one I'm going to choose is going to be this one. And I'm thinking I want to sort of start by using this piece, and then I might have to add into it because it's all rather dark, but at least it gives me a start point. And I need to make sure it fits into the book, and that's about 19.5 centimetres, so that's about that point there. So I might just add caution to the wind. I quite like the marks over the purple there, so I'm going to just, of course, you know, these are just studies. They don't all necessarily end up working. Some of them can be used, some of them not, and some of them you come back to a long time later. Okay, so I thought I'd just do an overhead so that you can see very clearly the reconfigured study. And so yes, I carry on doing several of these or a number of these, and usually I refer to them as a way of tapping into various ideas within the painting process when I'm actually doing my paintings. So thanks very much for watching, and please do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time and you'll be able to see how I'm going with them. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.